Well, let's talk to one signatory of the letter. Thanks, Simon, and to one, as I say, who definitely hasn't signed. Jane Angadia is on the line, CEO of Virgin Money in our Edinburgh studio. And Jim Mellon is also on the line, an investor worth an awful lot of money, a donator to the Leave.EU campaign, is in our Berlin studio. Morning to you both.
Morning.
Morning.
Jane Angadia, first of all, you've signed why?
Because I feel passionate about our future in Europe, and I hear the arguments about whether or not business leaders should sign this letter. I've signed for 3 reasons. As a business leader, I think our economy has been so important to the success of businesses and consumers for such a long time. We've seen jobs growth, wages growth, investment inwards to the UK. And now that we've got a deal that makes our position in Europe even stronger, I can see that all of those things would be better. I don't want to risk those. But as a human being too, I think that Europe has delivered social justice for our society. There's been improvement in health and safety, in working hours, in minimum wages, and I really think that we should continue to build on that. And then, frankly, as a mother, I want our children to be brought up as Europeans, not as isolationists. And all of those reasons, I think, are very important for us to stand up and be counted and to make a point in an argument that's going to be a once-in-a-generation decision.
Jim Mellon?
Well, first of all, I don't think that people who represent their shareholders and who haven't developed the businesses themselves should be signing these sort of letters. So companies such as Vodafone and so forth, I don't think have any business in signing letters, because the shareholders haven't been consulted as to whether they agree or not. Secondly, it's quite obvious to me that if you read the list of these signatories, most of them are people who've clawed their way up the corporate ladder rather than true entrepreneurs who've started businesses like Lord Bamford or Peter Hargreaves or James Dyson or Crispin Odey, all of whom are very firmly in the out camp. But I don't really take my view on Europe is a more nuanced one, which is that I think that the European Union itself is going to fracture as a result of the constraints of the Eurozone, and I see that coming quite quickly. And my point is not that we're making a leap in the dark if we leave Europe. It is that basically we're making a leap in the dark if we stay in, because there are very dark days ahead in Europe. I can tell you right now that I believe that Italy and France are bust, and that they're going to cause the breakup of the Eurozone. And if we're still on the Euro Titanic when that happens, it will be a depression for the United Kingdom, as indeed it will be in Europe.
And that's the point, isn't it, Jane Angadia? That's actually pretty uncertain, and we've discussed this on the programme in the last month or so. It is that there are uncertainties in both directions. You say in your letter, business needs unrestricted access to the European market of 500 million people in order to continue to grow. You seem to be suggesting somewhere we don't get that access on the day that we leave. That's not really the case, is it?
I think there are many fewer uncertainties by staying in. There are so many new treaties to be renegotiated. I mean, look what's happening with Norway and Switzerland. They've had to spend years negotiating their way into the European bloc. They still take, a number of more migrants, I think, than the UK. And so our uncertain future in renegotiating our position compared to the certainty of the position we've now negotiated, I think is very, very important in the difficult world that we live in. And I absolutely believe that, one great reason for staying in Europe is we are definitely better together, safer together, and more prosperous together than we ever would be alone.
And Jim Mellon, an awful lot of people who are employed by these companies who have signed the letter today will be listening to those words and thinking, perhaps she's right.
Well, undoubtedly true. I mean, there are nuanced arguments to be made on both sides. But what is certain is that at the moment the UK has the equivalent population of 350,000 people shoveling money on a net basis to the European Union every year. That's the size of the town of Bristol. That's a transfer from the UK to Europe. Europe itself is a sclerotic organisation. Italy's had no growth since 2000, and indeed the whole of Europe has a very, very low growth rate. And
they still buy an awful lot of our stuff, though, don't they?
Well, they do, but it's less and less. I mean, our trade with Europe is now about 43% of our exports, and the time we joined in the 70s, it was about 75%, with a lesser number of countries. But I also want to make one more point, which is that these luminaries from the FTSE 100 who are signing these letters, which, as I said, I don't think they should be doing, they have delivered a negative return on balance to their shareholders since 1999. So if you look at the performance of the FTSE 100 since 1999, it's gone down about 10%. So what sort of lessons are these people conveying to us?
And just briefly, the other thing that people say about these letters and the kind of people who sign them, including, I guess, yourself, Jane Angadia, that I don't know what your position was on this, but that an awful lot of them were saying Britain should join the euro, were campaigning for us to join the euro once upon a time, and were proved very wrong then.
Well, I think that the interesting point about that is that we've been able to explore what Europe means for us, protect our sovereignty, protect our currency.
Yeah,
and
but you all
protect our
fancied the
future.
euro at the time, that's the point.
To be honest, I was not in business at that particular time. But what I would say is, I completely agree with the point that Nicola Sturgeon made recently, which is that everybody can come up with a narrow view around their own self-interest for why we should be in or out. This is a much bigger issue than whether a FTSE chief executive should sign a letter or not. This is about the future of our children.
Jane
And the future
Angadia,
of our children needs to be safe.
we have to leave it there. Jane Angadia, we'll certainly come back to it. And Jim Mellon as well. Thanks both.